Captain Jin-soo stood on the deck of his patrol boat, watching the calm waters off the Korean coast. It was a clear morning with blue skies and gentle waves. Nothing suggested this day would change the course of human history forever. "Captain, there's something strange on the radar," said Tae, the young radar operator. His voice shook slightly. Jin walked over and looked at the screen. A large object was moving through the sky at impossible speeds, then suddenly stopping. "Military aircraft?" Jin asked. "No, sir. It's too big and too fast, and no aircraft can stop in midair like that." Jin grabbed his binoculars and searched the sky. At first he saw nothing. Then a glint of metal caught his eye. High above them, something silver and smooth hovered in the air. It was shaped like a teardrop and shone brightly in the morning sun. "Call headquarters," Jin ordered. "Tell them, we have an unidentified flying object over the Yellow Sea." Before Tae could make the call, every screen on the boat flickered. The radio crackled with static. "Hello, people of Earth. We come in peace." The voice came through in perfect Korean, shocking everyone on board. "This is Captain Jin-soo of the Korean Coast Guard," Jin replied after a moment of stunned silence. "Identify yourself." "We are the Miri," the voice answered. "We have traveled very far to meet you. We wish to land and speak with your leaders. It is a matter of great urgency." Jin looked at his crew. They stared back with wide eyes and open mouths. "I need to contact my superiors," Jin said carefully. "Of course. We will wait." 3 hours later, Jin stood at Incheon International Airport, watching as the silver craft slowly descended from the sky. The airport had been cleared of all regular flights. Military vehicles surrounded the landing area. Soldiers stood ready, weapons in hand. Jin had been ordered to act as the initial contact person since he was the first to communicate with the visitors. He wore his formal uniform and tried to look calm, though his heart pounded in his chest. Ship touched down without a sound. It was smaller than Jin had expected, about the size of a passenger jet. Its surface had no visible seams or windows. For a full minute, nothing happened. Then a section of the smooth hull simply disappeared, revealing an opening. A ramp extended to the ground. Jin held his breath as a figure appeared at the top of the ramp. The alien was tall and slender with 2 arms and 2 legs. Its skin shimmered, with colors that shifted like oil on water. Large, compound eyes dominated a face that was both familiar and strange. It wore something like a silver jumpsuit that seemed to flow around its body. Behind this first alien, 2 others appeared. They looked similar but with subtle differences in their coloring. The first alien walked down the ramp with graceful steps. It stopped a few meters away from Jin and raised a hand in greeting. "I am Eri, diplomatic envoy of the Miri and representative of the Galactic Union," it said in that same perfect Korean. "Thank you for allowing us to land." Jin bowed slightly. "I am Captain Jin-soo. Welcome to Earth." Eri's eyes seemed to study Jin with intense interest. "You are not your world's leader." "No," Jin admitted. "I'm just a Coast Guard captain who happened to be nearby when you arrived. Government officials are on their way." "That is acceptable," Eri said. "Sometimes the most important meetings happen by chance." Jin gestured to the terminal building. "We've prepared a place to talk while we wait." Inside a hastily arranged conference room, Jin sat across from the 3 aliens. Security personnel stood by the doors looking nervous. "Our translation technology allows us to understand and speak your language," Eri explained, when Jin asked how they could communicate so easily. "We studied your broadcasts for many years before coming here." "Why have you come to Earth?" Jin asked the question everyone wanted answered. Eri's large eyes blinked slowly. "We need your help." Of all the things Jin had expected to hear, this wasn't one of them. "Our help? But you clearly have technology far beyond ours." "Technology is not everything," said one of the other aliens. This one had introduced itself as Kyo, a science officer. "The Galactic Union consists of 17 advanced species from hundreds of star systems," Eri continued. "We have mastered faster-than-light travel, energy manipulation, and many sciences your people have not yet discovered. By your standards, we would seem like gods. But you still need our help, Jin said, trying to understand. Yes. Ares' color shifted to a deeper blue. We face an enemy we cannot defeat, an enemy that threatens to destroy not just our civilization, but all life in the galaxy. The room fell silent. Jin felt a chill run down his spine. What kind of enemy could threaten such advanced civilizations? He asked. We call them the Void Eaters, said the third alien, Mun, who served as security. Chief, they are unlike anything we have encountered before. They consume everything in their path, planets, stars, even the space between them. Aerie leaned forward. 50 of your Earth years ago, they appeared at the edge of Union space. Since then, they have destroyed 17 worlds. Nothing we do stops them. Jin tried to process this information. But what can we do? You said yourself that your technology is far beyond ours. It is not your technology we seek, Aerie said. It is something uniquely human. Before Jin could ask what that meant, the door opened. Government officials and military leaders filed into the room. Jin recognized the defense minister and several generals. Captain Jin, you are relieved, said General Park. We'll take over from here. Jin stood to leave, but Aerie raised a hand. I request that Captain Jin remain, the alien said. He has shown remarkable composure and understanding. We would prefer to continue our discussion with him present. The general looked surprised but nodded. Very well. Captain, please stay. As the new arrivals settled into their seats, Jin noticed Aerie watching him with those strange, multifaceted eyes. You wonder why we asked for you to stay, Aerie said quietly, while the others arranged their papers and tablets. Jin nodded. Your reaction to us was telling, Aerie explained. You were cautious but not fearful, curious but not reckless. You showed the qualities we believe make humans unique in the galaxy. And what qualities are those? Jin asked. Aerie's colors shifted to a warm gold. The ability to face the unknown with both courage and wisdom, to adapt quickly to changing circumstances, to make decisions based on incomplete information. Those don't sound very special, Jin said. They are rarer than you might think, Aerie replied. Most species excel at one or the other. They are either too cautious or too aggressive. Humans seem to balance on the edge between chaos and order. It is precisely this balance that we need. The defense minister called the meeting to order, preventing further private conversation. As the formal introductions began, Jin couldn't help but wonder, what could humans possibly offer to beings so advanced? And what were these void eaters that even the mighty Galactic Union couldn't stop them? He would soon find out, and the answer would change everything he thought he knew about humanity's place in the universe. 2 days after the aliens landed, world leaders gathered in Seoul. Jin sat in the back of the large conference room, surprised that he had been invited at all. The Miri had requested his presence, giving him a front-row seat to history. Han Jae, South Korea's top defense analyst, sat beside Jin. Can you believe this is happening? Jae whispered. Jin shook his head. Yesterday, I was checking fishing boats for permits. Today, I'm watching aliens talk to world leaders. The room quieted as Aerie and her team entered. The main lights dimmed, and Aerie raised a small silver device. Suddenly, the air above the conference table filled with light. A 3-dimensional image appeared, showing a map of stars and planets. This is the Galactic Union, Aerie said. Her voice was calm and clear, carrying throughout the room without a microphone. 3,000 years ago, the first 2 spacefaring species met and formed an alliance. Over time, 15 more joined. We spread across this section of the galaxy, sharing knowledge and resources. The image zoomed out, showing more of the galaxy. A dark spot appeared at the edge of the Union territory. 50 Earth years ago, our outpost on the planet Neri detected something unusual. At first, they thought it was a natural phenomenon, a strange area of space where light seemed to disappear. The image zoomed in on the dark spot. It looked like a hole in the fabric of space. 3 days after the first detection, all contact with Neri was lost, Aerie continued. When our ships arrived to investigate, they found nothing. The planet was gone. Not destroyed, gone. As if it had never existed. Murmurs filled the room. World leaders leaned forward in their seats. We called them Void Eaters, said Kyo, the science officer. They consume everything. Matter, energy, even space itself. They leave nothing behind. The image changed to show the dark spot growing, engulfing star systems one by one. We tried to fight, said Mun, the security chief. We used our most powerful weapons. Energy beams that could cut a moon in half. Gravity weapons that could crush a star. Nothing worked. The weapons just disappeared into the darkness. What exactly are these Void Eaters? Asked the American president. Are they living beings? Machines? We don't know, Kyo admitted. Our sensors cannot penetrate the void. We have theories, but no certainties. In 50 years, Aerie said, they have consumed 17 populated worlds and dozens of uninhabited systems. Their advance is slow but unstoppable. Nothing we do even slows them down. And you think we can help? The Chinese premier sounded skeptical. Our technology is primitive compared to yours. It is not your technology we need, Aerie replied. It is your perspective, your way of thinking. Jin listened as Aerie explained further. The species of the Galactic Union evolved toward harmony and cooperation. Over thousands of years, we eliminated conflict among ourselves. We became predictable, rational, always seeking the most logical solution. That sounds like a good thing, said Jay quietly to Jin. Against the Void Eaters, it is our greatest weakness, Aerie continued. Our strategies are too predictable. We always choose the most efficient course of action, the most logical defense. The Void Eaters adapted to our patterns. They anticipate our every move. The room was silent now. Jin could feel the weight of what Aerie was saying. We need unpredictability, chaos, intuition. We need species who still think in ways that are not always logical or efficient. Species who can surprise even themselves. You need humans because we're unpredictable. The Russian leader's translator conveyed his disbelief. We need humans because you are survivors, Moon said. Your history is full of impossible victories, against overwhelming odds. You think in ways we cannot. Li Da, a quantum physicist who had been brought into the meeting as a scientific advisor, stood up. She was young for her position but brilliant. Jin had met her during the preliminary briefings. You're saying you need us because we're still, what? Primitive, violent, irrational? There was an edge to her voice. Those words have negative meanings to you, Aerie said. We do not see them that way. Your species retains qualities that ours have lost. The ability to take risks without calculating all outcomes, to act on instinct, to change strategies in the middle of implementation. The image above the table changed again, showing Earth. Your planet has more military conflicts in a century than the entire Union has had in a millennium, Aerie said. You constantly develop new ways to fight, to defend, to attack. It is not a failing. In this situation, it may be salvation. Jin watched as the world leaders exchanged glances. Some looked offended, others intrigued. What exactly are you proposing? Asked the South Korean president. An alliance, Aerie replied. We provide the technology, you provide the strategies. Together, we fight the Void Eaters. And if we say no? The question came from a European leader. Kyo touched his device and the image changed again. Now it showed a path through the galaxy, from Union space toward Earth. Based on their current trajectory and speed, the Void Eaters will reach Earth in approximately 75 of your years, Kyo said. You cannot hide from them, you cannot run. Your planet will be consumed just like the others. The room erupted in voices. Some leaders argued, others demanded more information. Jin sat quietly, watching Aerie. The alien seemed tired, almost sad. After the noise died down, the UN Secretary General spoke. What guarantee do we have that your technology won't be used against us later? None, Aerie said simply. Just as we have no guarantee that humans won't use our knowledge to destroy yourselves. Trust must begin somewhere. Da stood up again. I have a different question. How did you choose Earth? There must be other unpredictable species in the galaxy. Yes, Eri agreed. But none with your particular combination of traits. You are technologically advanced enough to understand our science, yet still connected to your instinctual nature. And she paused. We have been watching your broadcasts for decades. Your stories interest us greatly. Our stories? Jin found himself speaking up without meaning to. Eri's eyes turned toward him. Yes, Captain Jin, your fiction, your movies, books, games. You constantly imagine scenarios where humans face impossible odds and find ways to win. In all our searching, we have found no species that spend so much time thinking about how to overcome unbeatable enemies. Jin thought about all the alien invasion movies humans had made. The irony was not lost on him. You want us to beat the Void Eaters using ideas from our science fiction? Jay asked, incredulous. Not exactly, Eri replied. But the human ability to imagine new possibilities, to think beyond conventional solutions. This is what we need. The meeting continued for hours. Questions were asked, concerns raised, arguments made. As evening approached, the leaders agreed to continue discussions the next day. As the room emptied, Jin found himself walking beside Da. The physicist looked deep in thought. What do you think? Jin asked her. I think, Da said slowly, that, for the first time in history, humanity's greatest weaknesses might turn out to be our greatest strengths. Jin nodded, looking up at the night sky visible through the windows. Somewhere out there, darkness was spreading across the stars. And somehow the fate of the galaxy might rest in human hands. 6 months passed quickly. The world had changed overnight when news of the aliens spread. At first there was fear and panic. Then came wonder and hope. Finally, determination set in as humanity faced its greatest challenge. Jin looked out the window of the new building that had been constructed near Incheon. The sign outside read, Earth-Miri Joint Defense Initiative, but everyone called it the Hive because of its busy, constant activity. Captain Jin, they're ready for you in the test chamber, said a young assistant. Jin nodded and followed. He was no longer a simple Coast Guard captain. Now he was Commander Jin, head of the 1st Human-Alien Combat Unit. The promotion still felt strange to him. Inside the large test chamber, Jin found Hanjae and Li Da waiting with Eri. They stood before what looked like a fighter jet, but unlike any Jin had ever seen. Its sleek shape reminded him of the Miri ships, but with obvious human influences. Is this it? Jin asked. The prototype? Jay nodded. The first of the wildcard fleet, built with Miri technology but designed by human engineers. Wildcard? Jin raised an eyebrow. That's the operation name, Da explained. Because we're the unpredictable element in this fight. Eri gestured toward the ship. This vessel contains technology we would normally share only with species who have been Union members for centuries. But necessity has changed our usual rules. Jin walked around the ship examining it closely. What makes it special? Its unpredictability, Da said with a hint of pride. Normal Union ships follow strict patterns and protocols. They're predictable, which makes them vulnerable to the Void Eaters. This ship is designed to be random in its attack patterns. Random? Jin frowned. That doesn't sound very effective. Not random, Jay corrected. Adaptable. The ship can change its strategy based on battlefield conditions without waiting for commands. Eri's color shifted to a deep blue. This concept is uncomfortable for my people. Our ships always function as a unified fleet, with clear hierarchy and coordination. Which is exactly why the Void Eaters beat you, Da said. They learned your patterns and adapted, but they won't adapt to ours because even we don't know what our ships will do next. Jin looked at the vessel with new appreciation. When do we start training? Now, Jay said. We have 30 ships ready and 200 humans trained on Miri technology. We leave for Talaris in 2 weeks. Talaris? Jin asked. A Miri colony world, Ari explained. It lies in the path of the approaching Void Eaters. If we can defend it, it will be the first time they have been stopped. Jin felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. 200 humans, against an enemy that had destroyed 17 worlds. The odds were not good. The training was intense. Jin worked with pilots from around the world, the best from each country. They learned to use technology that seemed like magic, ships that responded to thought as much as to physical controls, weapons that bent gravity and light, shields that existed in multiple dimensions at once. The key is to be unpredictable, Jin told his pilots during their final briefing. Don't fall into patterns. Don't do what seems logical. Trust your instincts. The night before they left Earth, Jin couldn't sleep. He walked through the quiet halls of the hive until he found himself in the observation room. To his surprise, Da was already there looking at the stars. Nervous? Jin asked, joining her at the window. Terrified, Da admitted. 6 months ago, I was working on theoretical physics papers that maybe 50 people in the world would read. Now I'm heading into space to fight monsters that eat planets. Jin smiled. 6 months ago, I was checking fishing licenses. They stood in silence for a moment. Do you think we can win? Da finally asked. I don't know, Jin said honestly, but I know we have to try. Da nodded. The Miri are counting on us to think differently than they do, to be unpredictable. That's what Operation Wildcard is all about, Jin agreed. Da turned to face him. There's something I've been wondering. Why did the Miri choose you specifically? Out of all the military leaders in the world, why keep a Coast Guard captain as the commander? Jin had wondered the same thing many times. Ari told me once that my first reaction to them was important. I was cautious but not fearful, curious but not reckless. Balance, Da said. The balance between chaos and order that Ari talks about. Jin shrugged. Maybe. Or maybe I was just in the right place at the right time. Either way, Da said, I'm glad you're leading us. The journey to Talaris took 3 days in the Miri ships. Jin spent most of that time studying reports and finalizing strategies with Jay and the other commanders. The Miri had provided all the information they had about the Void Eaters, which wasn't much. They're like living shadows, Jay explained during the final briefing. Regular weapons pass through them. Energy shields collapse when they touch them. So how do we fight something like that? Asked Kim, one of the squadron leaders. We try. Everything, Jin said. Different approaches, different weapons, different tactics. We keep changing until we find something that works. And if nothing works? Someone asked. Jin looked around at the faces of his team. Then we try something else. That's what humans do. As they approached Talaris, Jin joined Ari on the bridge of the command ship. Through the viewing screen he could see the planet, a beautiful blue-green world, not unlike Earth. How many people live there? Jin asked. 2 million Miri colonists, Ari replied. They have been evacuating for weeks, but many remain. And the Void Eaters? Ari pointed to a display showing the space around Talaris. In the distance, a darkness was approaching, a patch of nothing against the stars. They will reach the planet in 6 hours, Ari said. Jin studied the display, trying to understand what he was seeing. The darkness seemed to move slowly, steadily, devouring everything in its path. Your people will observe from a safe distance, Jin said. It wasn't a question. Yes, Ari confirmed. The Union Council believes your strategies have the best chance of success, but they are concerned about unpredictability. Jin smiled grimly. That's exactly what we're counting on. He turned to the communication panel. All ships, this is Commander Jin. Prepare for deployment. Operation Wildcard begins in 5 hours. As he finished speaking, Jin looked back at the viewing screen. Somewhere in that darkness was an enemy that had never known defeat. An enemy that thought it understood all the patterns of the universe. It was about to meet something it had never encountered before. Human unpredictability. We're ready, Jin told Ari. Let's show the Void Eaters what humans can do. The darkness approached Talaris like a slow wave. From the command deck of his flagship Defiance, Jin watched the enemy come closer. The ship's advanced viewing systems showed the Void Eaters clearly, a mass of writhing shadows that seemed to bend the very fabric of space around it. "All ships report ready, Commander," Jay said from his station. Jin nodded. "And the Miri fleet?" "Holding position at the agreed distance," Jay replied. "They're watching, but not engaging unless we call for backup." Jin turned to look at the tactical display. 30 human ships against an enemy that had never been defeated. The odds were terrible, but Jin felt strangely calm. "Ari, what would a Union fleet do in this situation?" Jin asked the Miri liaison who stood nearby. "They would deploy in standard crescent formation," Ari answered. "It is the most efficient defense pattern for protecting a planet." Jin smiled. "Then that's exactly what we won't do. All ships execute Operation Chaos." Immediately, the human vessels broke formation. Instead of arranging themselves in the logical crescent shape that the Miri would have used, they scattered in seemingly random directions. Each ship began moving on its own unique path, following no obvious pattern. "What are they doing?" Ari asked, her colors shifting to a confused yellow. "Being unpredictable," Jin replied. "The Void Eaters expect certain patterns, we're not giving them any." As the human ships approached the darkness, they began to fire, but not with standard weapons. Some fired special projectiles designed by Da's team, bullets that carried a mix of matter and antimatter, creating tiny explosions where they hit the darkness. Others deployed electromagnetic pulses tuned to frequencies that might disrupt whatever held the Void Eaters together. Jin watched the tactical display intently. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The darkness continued its steady advance toward Talaris. Then suddenly it slowed. "It's working," Jay exclaimed. "Their consumption pattern is changing. They're slowing down." Jin leaned forward. "What's happening?" "They seem confused," Da reported from the science ship. "They're trying to adapt to multiple threats simultaneously." For the first time in 50 years, the Void Eaters' advance had halted. Jin felt a surge of hope. But it didn't last long. The darkness began to shift. Tendrils of void reached out toward specific vessels, the ones whose weapons seemed most effective. The darkness was learning, adapting. 3 ships reporting their weapons are no longer having an effect, Jay said, his voice tense. "The Void Eaters are countering them somehow." Jin had expected this. "All ships implement Wildcard Protocol Alpha." Across the battlefield, every human vessel suddenly changed tactics. Those that had been firing one type of weapon switched to another. Those that had been moving in certain patterns changed course. It was controlled chaos, the heart of the wildcard strategy. "Why are they changing?" Ari asked, bewildered. "Some of their approaches were working." "Because the enemy was adapting," Jin explained. "By changing our tactics, we forced them to start adapting all over again." This cycle repeated 3 times. The human ships would find something that seemed to work against the Void Eaters. The enemy would begin to adapt. The humans would change tactics completely, forcing the Void Eaters to start the adaptation process again. "It's working," Jay said, after an hour of battle. They haven't advanced any closer to Talaris, but Jin could see a problem. With each cycle, the Void Eaters adapted more quickly. Soon they would be able to counter new human tactics almost immediately. "We need something they can't adapt to," Jin muttered. "Something completely unexpected." Just then, Da's voice came, through the communication system. "Commander, I'm detecting something unusual at the center of the Void Eater mass." "What is it?" Jin asked. "I'm not sure," Da replied. "But it's different from the rest. More dense, more organized. I think it might be controlling the rest of the mass." Jin looked at Ari. "Did your people ever detect anything like this?" "No," Ari answered, her colors shifting to an interested purple. "Our sensors never penetrated deep enough into the void." Jin studied the tactical display. If Da was right, and there was something at the center controlling the Void Eaters, then striking at that center might be their only chance. "Can we target it?" Jin asked. "Negative," Da responded. "Our weapons can't penetrate that deep into the mass. The darkness absorbs everything before it gets close. Jin considered their options. The longer they fought, the faster the Void Eaters adapted. They needed to end this quickly. How close would we need to get to target the center? Jin asked. There was a pause before Da answered. Very close, basically inside the darkness itself. Jin exchanged glances with Jay, who shook his head slightly. They both knew what that meant. A suicide mission. Prepare the Defiance for a direct approach, Jin ordered after a moment. Commander? Jay looked alarmed. We're going to take this ship into the center of the Void Eaters, Jin explained. If there's something controlling them in there, we're going to hit it with everything we've got. That's impossible, Eri protested. Nothing survives contact with the Void. Your ship will be consumed before you reach the center. Maybe, Jin agreed. But we have to try. The Defiance has our strongest shields and our most powerful weapons. If anything can reach the center, it's this ship. Jay stepped closer to Jin. Sir, this is a one-way trip. I know, Jin said quietly. That's why I'm only taking volunteers. Anyone who wants to leave can take the escape pods now. Jin expected most of the crew to leave. To his surprise, not a single person moved toward the escape pods. We're with you, Commander, Jay said, speaking for everyone. Jin felt a swell of pride. Thank you. Now let's make a plan. They worked quickly. The Defiance would charge directly at the center of the Void Eaters while the other ships created a diversion. Da's team had modified the ship's main reactor to detonate on command, creating an explosion that might be powerful enough to damage whatever was at the center of the darkness. All ships, this is Commander Jin, he announced over the communication system. The Defiance will attempt to reach the center of the Void Eater mass. All other vessels will provide covering fire and then withdraw to a safe distance. As the crew prepared for the desperate mission, Eri approached Jin. This is not a strategy any Union commander would consider, she said. I know, Jin replied. That's why we might succeed where you failed. Eri's colors shifted to a deep, respectful blue. Your species is remarkable, Jin-Su. No matter what happens today, the Union will remember your courage. Jin nodded his thanks. Then he turned to the helm control. All hands, prepare for maximum speed. Target, the center of the void. As the Defiance began its charge toward the darkness, Jin thought of Earth, of home, of all the people counting on them. One ship against an enemy that consumed planets. The odds were impossible, but humans had always been good at beating impossible odds. The Defiance raced toward the heart of darkness. All around the ship, the void swirled and churned like angry storm clouds. On the command deck, Jin gripped his chair as the ship shook violently. Shields at 60%, Jay reported. His voice was steady despite the danger. How much deeper? Jin asked. We're about halfway to the center, Da answered from the science station. But the resistance is getting stronger. The void is pressing against our shields from all sides. Jin watched the view screen as tendrils of darkness slid across the ship's protective field. It looked like the void was trying to find a way inside. Engine power dropping, called an engineer. The void is somehow draining our energy. Reroute power from non-essential systems, Jin ordered. We need to keep moving forward. The ship shuddered again, more violently this time. A warning alarm sounded. Shields at 40%, Jay updated. We're losing them too quickly. Jin knew they might not make it to the center, but they had to try. Increase speed. Put everything we have into the engines. The Defiance surged forward, pushing deeper into the darkness. Outside, the other human ships were following the plan, firing their weapons to distract the Void Eaters from the Defiance's approach. Commander, Da called suddenly. I'm getting clearer readings on the central mass. It's alive. Alive? Jin moved to her station. What do you mean? It's some kind of creature, Da explained, pointing to her screen. Not like anything we've seen before. It exists partially in our dimension and partially in others. The darkness around it is like an extension of its body. Jin stared at the readings. So the Void Eaters aren't many creatures, but one big one? I think so, Da nodded. And we're heading right for its brain, This changed everything. They weren't fighting an army. They were fighting a single massive organism. Shields at 25%, Jay warned. We can't take much more. Jin returned to his chair and opened a channel to all ships. All vessels, this is Commander Jin. We've discovered that the Void Eaters are a single organism with a central brain. The Defiance will continue its approach and attempt to destroy this brain. All other ships withdraw to safe distance now. As the rest of the fleet pulled back, the Defiance pushed deeper into the darkness. The ship groaned under the pressure. Systems began to fail. The lights flickered. Shields at 15%, Jay reported. Engine power dropping fast. Jin knew they weren't going to make it much farther. How close are we to the center? About 2 minutes at current speed, Da answered. But our shields won't last that long. Jin made a quick decision. Prepare to eject the reactor core. Jay looked up in surprise. Sir, if we can't reach the brain, we'll send our reactor core to it, Jin explained. Set it to detonate on impact. The crew worked quickly to prepare the reactor for ejection. It was their most powerful weapon, a fusion reactor enhanced with Miri technology. If it detonated close enough to the creature's brain, it might be enough to kill it. Reactor ready for ejection, the chief engineer reported. Shields at 8%, Jay added. Failing fast. Jin took a deep breath. Eject reactor and prepare for emergency retreat. The ship shuddered as the reactor core was jettisoned. On the view screen, they watched the glowing core speed away from the ship, diving deeper into the darkness. Turn us around, Jin ordered. Maximum speed, get us out of here. The Defiance began its desperate escape attempt. Without its main reactor, the ship had to rely on backup power. It moved slowly, too slowly. The reactor will detonate in 30 seconds, Da reported. Shields failing, Jay called out. We're exposed to the void. Jin felt the darkness pressing against the ship, trying to get in. Systems were shutting down all around them. The lights went out, leaving only the emergency red glow. 20 seconds to detonation. The ship crawled through the darkness. They weren't going to make it in time. All hands, brace for impact, Jin ordered. Just then, a bright light appeared outside the ship. At first, Jin thought the reactor had detonated early. Then he realized it was another ship, a Miri vessel, breaking through the darkness. This is Aerie, came a voice over the communication system. Prepare for emergency teleportation. Before Jin could respond, he felt a strange tingling sensation. The world around him blurred. Then suddenly he was standing on the bridge of a Miri ship along with Jay, Da, and the rest of his bridge crew. What? Jin began. 5 seconds to reactor detonation, a Miri officer announced. Through the view screen, Jin watched as a massive explosion erupted at the heart of the darkness. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the void began to writhe and twist as if in pain. The creature is reacting, Aerie said. Your weapon found its target. The darkness contracted, then expanded violently. Tendrils of void thrashed in all directions. Then slowly, the darkness began to fade. Where once there had been complete blackness, stars became visible again. Is it dead? Jin asked quietly. Da checked the readings on a Miri console. The central mass is gone. The void is dissipating. A cheer went up from the human crew. Jin felt a wave of relief wash over him. They had done it. They had defeated the undefeatable enemy. Your plan worked, Commander, Aerie said, her colors shifting to a bright, joyful gold. You saved Talaris. Jin shook his head. We didn't all make it. Most of your crew was teleported to safety, Aerie assured him. But yes, we lost 17 brave souls who were too deep in the ship for our teleporters to reach. 17 lives to save a planet of 2 million. Jin knew it was a victory, but the loss still hurt. 3 weeks later, Jin stood before the Galactic Union Council in their grand chamber. It was the first time in Union history that humans had been invited to this sacred space. Beside him stood Jay and Da, representing Earth's military and scientific communities. The battle reports confirm it, announced the council leader, a tall being from one of the oldest Union species. The Void Eater entity has been destroyed. Talaris is safe. Thanks to the humans' actions, a murmur ran through the assembled delegates. Jin looked around at the representatives of 17 advanced civilizations, all watching the humans with new respect. This victory was only possible through cooperation, Jin said when invited to speak. Union technology combined with human strategy and human sacrifice, added the council leader. We understand you lost crew members in the battle. Jin nodded solemnly. They gave their lives willingly to save others. It is an honored tradition among humans. The concept clearly troubled many of the delegates. Jin had learned that in the Union, death by violence was extremely rare. Their advanced technology had eliminated most forms of death long ago. For 3,000 years, the council leader said, the Union has prided itself on evolving beyond violence, beyond the primitive instincts that drive younger species. We thought this made us superior. Eri, now standing beside the council leader as Earth's advocate, spoke up. Instead, it nearly led to our extinction. The humans have given us more than victory. They've given us perspective. Therefore, continued the council leader, we extend formal membership in the Galactic Union to Earth with a special provision. Humans will lead the creation of a new defense force to protect all Union worlds. Jin looked at Jay and Da, seeing his own surprise mirrored in their faces. Full membership in the Union would mean access to technologies that would transform life on Earth. We accept, Jin said, with one condition of our own. Name it, said the council leader. The Union must recognize that progress doesn't always mean leaving everything behind. Sometimes the old ways, the fighting spirit, the willingness to take risks, the unpredictability, are what's needed to face new threats. As Jin finished speaking, he saw understanding dawn on many alien faces. Not all, but enough. Humans had proven their worth not despite their primitive nature, but because of it. As the council voted unanimously to accept Earth into the Union, Jin thought about how far they had come. 6 months ago, he had been a simple Coast Guard captain. Now he represented humanity before the galaxy's greatest powers, and somewhere out in the darkness between the stars, other threats might be waiting. But now, thanks to the unique partnership between human unpredictability and alien technology, the galaxy was ready to face them. The end.